This is KGW News at
I don't
Sunrise.
want to be put in a position where I have to choose, being sick because I can't eat because of the heat, and being in the street.
Facing eviction over air conditioning. These tenants are being forced to choose between living with no AC or losing their apartments. Why the landlord is doing this right in the middle of a heat wave.
Everyone is scrambling to find AC units right now. This heat wave really brought up demand, so we checked in with local and the big box stores to see what their supply is looking like.
Well, one place where you can go to beat the heat this week is the Oregon coast, and that's where we're headed this morning for our latest edition of Rod on the Job.
That wasn't horrible. Good stroke. And if we look at the putt, it actually wasn't the line that was the problem. If you had hit it harder, it would have gone in.
We've got Rod talking there on video. We've got Rod talking here in the studio. Rodney learning the ins and outs of keeping the Astoria Golf and Country Club in tip-top shape as they play host to the Oregon Coast Invitational this week.
Yes, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
Thank
Rod
you.
from vacation.
Good to be back home. You know, you go on vacation. I really unplug when I get away. I don't keep track of
You didn't know it was hot outside?
But then, well, it was up north where it's always hot, up around Spokane. But then I start, reading, getting myself prepped a couple days ago. I'm like, what the heck is going on
Exactly.
again? So here we go. Excessive heat warning is for this kind of pinkish tone color. This does not include Calais County, but it does include Clark down into the Willamette Valley, the Gorge, and then really much of inland Oregon, where temperatures are expected to be 100 or better. The orange area is no big picnic. That's a heat advisory for temperatures in the 90s for the coming days. The only spot really escaping the heat this time around will be the Oregon coast. We are clear up top. We're 70 out at the airport. A lot of you are at least in the 60s. And here's the day planner, which is really important because realize it's going to be 87 to noon. I think we'll hit 90 at 1 p.m. So best to get things done before 1 p.m. And then there's that high, 102. Yesterday it was 99. 102 would break today's current record of 100 that we set back in 2020, not too long ago. Back to you. All right, welcome back to the show again, Rod, and we'll have more from you coming up in a few minutes. The heat this week does have a lot of people shopping for an air conditioner, but shopping for one and actually finding one are two very different things.
Yeah, we called several Home Depot and Lowe's stores in our area. Most told us they were either sold out of ACs or had very few on hand. Several customers told us the big box stores actually sent them to Ankeny Hardware on Southeast Stark in Portland. The owner telling us he started this summer with 500 units. He added another 200 last week. He said planning ahead for seasonal stock is always a gamble, but given supply chain issues, it's important to have enough on hand.
This year, we were told they're going to be hard to get because where are they made? They're made in Wuhan in China. That's where the majority of the manufacturing is. A lot of that stuff is still shut down. They told us, let's get them, we're going to have to get them in by December.
Isn't that wild? Of course, air conditioners are an investment not everyone can afford. Over the weekend, state health officials teamed up with community groups to deliver 500 AC units to those in need. They hope to get 3,000 by the end of summer. After last year's deadly heat wave, lawmakers passed a bill that put $5 million toward that investment.
People living in a Newburgh apartment complex say they received eviction notices for having AC units in their windows. The housing authority says the units are a fire hazard. As Blair Best shows us, these tenants really have no good options. Either live without air conditioning or lose their apartments.
90 degrees with no AC.
I could get physically sick because you're so hot.
In this 100-degree weather, it's horrible.
These women live in Haworth Terrace, a low-rent public housing community run by the Yamhill County Housing Authority. Many just received these eviction notices for having AC units in their windows.
Just all of a sudden, in the middle of July, they decide to evict mostly elderly and disabled people for their air conditioners, and I just don't think it's reasonable.
Mary McGrew has MS and has lived here for 5 years. In May, she received a notice that her window AC unit is a fire hazard and must be removed or else she'll be evicted.
It's really unfortunate how we're intimidated.
She hired a lawyer who negotiated an extension, allowing her to keep the unit until the end of this month.
But my eviction still stands. If I don't have it out by July 31st, I will be evicted on the 1st.
I got an eviction notice saying that I either had to take it out by the 21st or they were going to serve me with eviction papers.
And Nikki Sherman has lived here for 15 years and has always had AC in her window. The property management says floor units are allowed, which costs hundreds of dollars.
Oh my gosh, it would take me like almost 6 months to save up because I live paycheck to paycheck with the stuff that I already have.
I start to get headaches around 80 degrees and bloody noses, and I'm afraid of stroke or a seizure.
Now, according to Oregon law, landlords are not legally required to provide AC for their tenants. The executive director of Yamhill County Housing Authority tells KGW in an email, "We have been attempting to work with our tenants to find solutions to their cooling needs while at the same time complying with the federal housing and urban development's building standards." She goes on to say Haworth Terrace was recently notified by their governing agency that the apartments with window AC units are in violation of HUD standards, saying they're a fire hazard and must be removed. In May, Sherry Casto took her window unit out in fear of eviction. She now takes multiple cold showers a day and wears wet towels around her neck.
I don't want to be put in a position where I have to choose, being sick because I can't eat because of the heat, and being in the street.
But I just want to keep my air conditioner. And so do these other people.
In Newburgh, Blair Best, KGW News.
Last year, Oregon lawmakers passed a law to try and prevent landlords from banning window air conditioning units. But it does come with multiple exceptions. For example, landlords can still ban AC units if they're a fire safety hazard or damage the building. Our team on the story looked deeper into this law. You can watch that full report right now on the KGW YouTube channel.
In your morning headlines this morning, the Washington County Sheriff's Office says the search for a missing swimmer at Hagg Lake is now considered a recovery mission. The Sheriff's Office says the man had been swimming with family yesterday afternoon when he went underwater and never resurfaced. The lake was packed with people to cool off. The swimmer has not yet been identified, but the search for his body will continue this morning. Washington health officials confirming the first case of monkeypox in Clark County. They say the man who tested positive has no recent travel history. He is isolating at home now. Clark County Public Health is working to ID people who were in close contact. Those are a few of your morning headlines.
Well, before we check back in with Rod and today's full forecast, take a look at this. I don't think Rod has any snow in his 7-day outlook, but they have it at the Lloyd Center Mall this week. They're actually making it snow on the ice rink every afternoon between 1 and 3 o'clock now through Sunday. You can skate through the flakes, or you can just sit back and watch the snow fall at the mall.
It's pretty even when it's fake. I love that idea.
It's pretty cool. Rod, I know your daughter has skated all over this area.
Yes.
Have you ever seen it there where they make the snow fall?
No,
Yeah.
I have not.
They do it all through the holidays
Okay.
and stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
when you go and
Why am I asking him? I should have been asking you.
Here's why I don't like that story, because to me it's an attempt to make us forecasters look silly.
Oh, gosh.
It's not snowing outside.
You're quite
Give us
capable
a
of doing
little
that on your own.
something.
All right, the day planner, I'm going to say repeatedly this morning, is really important because I want to focus that it will be 90 degrees at 1 o'clock today. So again, if the heat bothers you, best to get things done before then. Yesterday it was 84 at noon, today 87, then 90 at 1. And there's that record high, we believe. Again, today's record is 100, we're forecasting 102. We haven't been to 100 or better since we did it back-to-back days of August last summer. I think those 2 days mid-August last year were 102, 103. All right, only thing we're watching on Futurecast, this is 9 o'clock this morning, is that we do have fog banks right now being reported up and down much of the coast, and Futurecast has that, backs it off, brings it back a little bit later in the day. Here's getting into this evening at 7. So depending on exact location at the beach, yesterday we had temperatures in Newport and Uquinta Bay in the mid-60s. Astoria hit 84. That range today will be similar, and that's one spot where there are no heat advisories, warnings, nothing, just some pretty decent warm summer weather. All right, here are the numbers outside right now. Away from the beach, we are mainly clear up top. 70 in Portland, 71 in the Dalles, the two warm spots on the map. But 62, quite a bit more comfortable up in Kelso, 53 out in Burns, and 50 degrees in Baker City this morning. the forecast for the coming days with the mix of excessive heat warnings and heat advisories will be all about the actual numbers. So here's the coast. We mentioned 84 up in Astoria, potentially 65 in Newport, potentially, if that mix of fog banks and sunshine. Winds will be on the light side. Here are the latest valley numbers. McMinnville, you folks did hit 100 yesterday. You expected to do it again today. Salem could be 102. You folks were 101 yesterday. Corvallis 97, the excessive heat warning up and down the Willamette Valley. Technically, it's a heat advisory when you get north of Clark County, and that just means the forecast is going to hold you under 100. We're thinking 98 up in Longview, but there's 100 in Battleground, 102 in Vancouver. The relative humidity factors, by the way, yesterday during the hottest part of the day averaged between about 20 and 30%. And that's actually low enough that if the temperature is 102 today, it will only feel like it's 100. Doesn't sound like much, but that's better than it going the opposite direction, right, and feeling hotter. I believe the air mass is going to hold a similar temperature all the way through Friday, which means we could be 100, 102 the next 4 days, cooling, but still in the 90s this weekend, and maybe holding on to 90 on Monday. If all this comes true, I believe that would make it 16 90-degree days this summer season. Average now is considered to be 15. Back to you.